Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's August 29, 2025. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Also want to thank the Ann Arbor Film Festival for introducing me to today's guest, Joanie Wind. Is that how you say it? No,
It's wind, actually.
I'm sorry, Joanie Wind. I knew I was going to mispronounce it. I got a good education in Ann Arbor, but I still can't pronounce right. Joanie Wind, where are you calling from?
Royal Oak, Michigan.
Wind. Let me get that straight. Royal Oak, Michigan. How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Well, I guess it depends on the human being, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, basically, I'm after your intuitions, your hunch, your guess.
yeah, I guess, you know, finding a worldview that that they feel like they have a sense of purpose,
Yeah,
um, which, is subjective and sometimes destructive, depending on who you are. Um, Yeah, I think, for me personally, it seems that art making, gives me that kind of sense of purpose, or is a cope, as they say. Um,
it's good. What's
yeah.
your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Um, so um, I think I prioritize images, um, because they feel more like intuitive, I guess, and visceral than words. I feel like language kind of, it's because it needs to be so precise. It can get you maybe into some snares.
It's good. You're touching on everything we're going to go into, so I appreciate this. You sort of
Great.
have ESP. So why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Oh, I think it's natural for us to try to kind of understand the world around us, right? And think we, can reach some kind of conclusion or some kind of truth or some kind of objective sense of reality, even though maybe it's not possible for us.
Yeah, that's like Cindy Lumet said, movies can't do diddly squat, but it ain't going to keep me from trying. So you kind of touched on this, Joan. Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
um so my opinion of this probably has changed because I have a kid now. And I think I've always thought that everything was nurture. um but I think there is something to nature, or maybe there's like a false binary there. Maybe they're just kind of
Yeah.
different sides of the same coin. But um yeah, I think, what was the original question? I
Well,
got
no,
into this
that's
tangent.
false binary was a good thing. It's basically, is it more innate or more invented? For us to seek and collect, gather information.
Yeah, that's hard to say because I think that, there's a lot of invention there, because there's a lot of, some of the collecting of information that we do is maybe for other people, not just in a showy way, but in a communicative way. And I'm not sure, you know, if I would need that the same way, or like collect that information the same way I do if there weren't other people.
Yeah, very good. So, do thoughts create emotions?
Hmm. I mean, they certainly can. I'm trying to think. I think that there are times that emotions happen, kind of circumvent thoughts, or happen before thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, I think that maybe emotions frequently happen before thoughts, and thoughts are the way of kind of rationalizing them, but thoughts can certainly come first as well. So,
It's good.
both.
See,
Yeah.
what I'm after is me and you are psychoanalyzing the wording on the question. So when you changed it before circumvent, I'm really after that. Just because I say do thoughts create emotions, it's much wider. So it's sort of us delving deep and analyzing how those work. And so fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I,
Have time to process it.
yeah,
In fact, I would add that I don't actually know why I've made something until I have time to process that. And sometimes
yeah,
that processing happens long after it's shown in a film festival and long
yeah,
after people have asked me questions about it. So,
yeah. No, that's good. This woman a couple months ago, she says, I don't know what I think until I rant about it for 30 minutes.
yeah.
But I can tell because on my pre interview listings, I say silence is okay. And I've noticed you will take a moment to think, and most people feel rushed. They think they have to answer immediately. And I'm for you can sit there and think for 3 minutes. It's gonna, it'll drive people nuts, but it's not me. I'm like, that's fine. There's no rush here. So can humans think without language?
That's a good question. I mean, again, gonna pull up the mom card here. I think, my kid was definitely thinking before he had a grasp of language, before he was able to talk, or long before he was able to talk, certainly. Um, so yeah, what that's like, I don't remember. I don't know, but I imagine so. Yeah,
How old is your son then?
he's 3 now. He's almost 4.
Age 3. Wow. So this is a bonus question because it came up in the New Yorker magazine a while back. Can babies have dreams inside the mother's womb? Or do they need to have experience in the world to be able to dream? And, what's your hunch or guess on that?
I my hunch is definitely that they can. But they're still having experiences inside the womb.
That's
So
true.
they're still feeling, they still sense things. They're experiencing whatever you're eating, and they're experiencing the conditions of your womb, right? So they might be having dreams about that. I've read really bizarre things about babies in the womb can do this is really off, like weird, but that they can like masturbate and stuff like that. And
No,
certainly,
oh my God, I'm
yeah.
glad you told me that.
I was doing a lot of research when I was pregnant about what they can do. But yeah, they certainly they have a whole experience in there, and a lot of why newborn babies cry is because the womb is such a lovely place, it sounds like, and
Yeah.
being ripped from that place is really harsh and traumatic for them, and kind of they're put in this kind of awful, I don't know,
Yeah, well,
senses more
there's
intense.
two things you touched on perfectly. Robin Williams called it womb service, and Captain Beefheart said, "I'm going back in." But Robin Williams says we spend 9 months getting out, and we spend the rest of our lives trying to get back in. Frank Lloyd Wright's mom put up pictures of buildings in the room when she was pregnant because she wanted him to become an architect. So did it go through her brain and into the womb? Did the pictures seep through the walls of the womb or the stomach? Or, she just hoped he would do that and nurtured it. Who knows?
Mhm.
But that is amazing. That's why we cry, and what else can we do inside the womb? So I thank you for telling me that. Chomsky says language is not just words, it's culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
I guess I would lean into, I mean, I feel like language is um actually a very problematic form of communication. So yeah, I that's why I think I'm drawn to images, humor which isn't always language based. There's um other ways of communicating that are, I guess, more, I want to say, intimate and nurturing
Yeah.
and like but it's not always possible, and certainly, communicating over the internet is language based largely, and so those other forms of communicating break down a bit. I imagine there's some kind of way that we communicate through smell and stuff that we're not really aware of, and we're missing more and more as society changes.
Totally.
Smell's
But
so tied to memory. I'm
yeah.
sure there's things that we just don't realize that we've kind of lost over time.
Well, that's five senses is important memory. We're going to get into both of those. But I'm saying you're an educator too, right? When you're teaching and you're sort of have a breakdown getting through to your students, what do you do? Is there anything you do different than, or anything you do?
Um, I mean, I guess it's with teaching, it's listening.
Yeah.
um, so it kind of depends on, what I think their need is, and a lot of times people aren't willing to listen unless they feel heard in some way. So I think, listening is the first thing I do. Of course, that's, still language based, but I think that's what I try to do, make them
Yeah.
feel validated and heard in some way.
Yeah. Very good. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think we like to think that we're extremely rational, but I think we are more feeling. I think
Yeah.
we're definitely more feeling. And I think that's becoming more and more apparent as we do things that are highly unreasonable and irrational and not best for all of humanity. I think that we're just feeling way
Yeah.
more than we think.
Yeah, Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Or people who meditate go, now think about not thinking. And there's a car on my street has a bumper sticker and it says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel. So here's two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
I don't know. I don't know what the soul is,
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, it's hard for me to kind of separate the mind and the soul, I guess.
The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, I guess that's to be determined, but not so far.
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Well, I'd like to think I pursue happiness, but I think that unfortunately for me, I tend to pursue meaning more
Well, I
because
got it from, go ahead.
uh, I recognize situations where I could just be happy or enjoy that present moment, and instead I'm trying to kind of work out something else, make myself, some kind of other meaning.
Well, the thing is, I got it from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he says happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, well, happiness, yeah, if like if happiness is kind of some kind of dopamine hit, then yeah, it definitely doesn't last. But I suppose there are different interpretations of happiness if you think of happiness as yeah, kind of working towards that meaning, if that, I don't know.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Do So wait, let me repeat the question. Does the brain detect consciousness or does it create it?
Yeah, that's basically. I know it's both. This a lot of these are like your word false binaries. It's just, is there a hunch more you think? Of course it's both and it depends, but is there a little leaning towards one or the other? That we're more creating it or more detecting it?
In ourselves or someone else? Or
It's again, how do you define what consciousness is? I mean, that's a big question right there. What is consciousness? So again, consciousness is this thing we invented with a word that, it goes to a great Detroit person, Lily Tomlin. Reality is just a collective hunch. So, we invent this word consciousness and we think we have a collective hunch of what it is. Or back to you, the word soul. You go, I don't know what a soul is. Well, I mean, you're from Detroit. You got soul. That's what Detroit's all about. I mean, I don't know if you're from there, but you've lived there. It's soul music, whatever. But I'm just saying, do you think this consciousness thing is created by humans or it's more there and we're detecting it?
I mean, I guess what my experiences of consciousness, I am detecting it in that I'm feeling my own awareness, or
Yeah.
I feel aware.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I would create that, or if I'm creating it, then I am conscious already, right? Or
Yeah.
um
No,
I'm
feeling
not sure.
aware is like a rewording of saying detect or create. So I appreciate that. I think that's feeling and awareness. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
For me, obviously speed of light.
There's no hurry here. Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer, her colleague, said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
I just feel like the CIA has already come up with ways of handling other tools.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
What's the tool you most gravitate towards?
um, I think the tools that tend to prove to be, I don't want to use the word authentic, or in like, but anything that exists, anything that you can kind of keep outside of the market
Yeah.
of profit or consumption, and anyway, it tends to be the thing that is going to feel most meaningful or be most effective for kind of relating to other people, or feels like the most human thing, I think. um
It's amazing what you just said because McLuhan says that technology, which he means everything we invent, is the most human thing. That anything we invent. He also says the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can. So you can they don't make shit and go, oh, we can go sell this in the market. They just make shit. You know, I mean,
right.
so that's, I think you're touching on something that resonates with me deeply. As soon as you create something, actually Zappa says making art is making something and selling it. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be sold. You can give your art away. I mean, if you're an experimental filmmaker, you ain't going to make no money. You're going to have to end up teaching. But they'll give you some honorarium somewhere and you'll go, wow, I'm worth $50. I know, I've been there, done. So what's a toy that you gravitate towards? Because I ask this tool question so often and someone said, well, what about a toy? So is there any toy you gravitate towards?
I'm not, well, okay. I like editing if we're talking about tools. I don't
Yeah.
like I don't like shooting. I don't like so many things. I don't really enjoy a lot of learning new software or anything like that, but I really enjoy editing. And I also enjoy certain formats. I think my favorite thing that has happened in recent history is the meme, like the
Yeah.
internet meme.
Yeah.
Um, that format I think is just so, I don't know, relevant to how we communicate now because it's just like image text kind of happening together, and together they create a new meaning.
It's good.
Um,
It's good.
and it's very fast,
It's fast. We'll get into that. It's almost like a visual haiku poem. And meme and editing are really good answers. I appreciate that. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
everything.
Okay. McLuhan learned from a poet that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because it's not profitable to listen to artists.
Not profitable. I don't get that answer very often. You are one smart person. So do artists have moral obligation?
It would seem unfair to expect something like that from a group of people who are, I guess, expected to do things for free. But I don't think a lot of artists feel that way, but I think, unfortunately, probably, I think that we can see a lot of outcomes that are the direct result of art, or even artists that are well intentioned. I think in recent history, I think about uh, satire, and this, artists assume that people are understanding things about the work that seem obvious to them, and the general public or whoever is consuming their work, whatever the intended audience maybe isn't getting what they think they are. Maybe they're taking it, maybe people are more literal than they were in the past, or just always.
Yeah.
And so I think there are a lot of outcomes that result from unintentionally, and sometimes intentionally, right? There's a lot of propaganda too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. A couple things. That's good. McLuhan learned from Jacques Ellul that propaganda is just culture in action. We demonize propaganda in Europe. That's like, no, that's just culture in action. But what you said was, in my opinion, once the artist makes their art, it's no longer theirs. The human consumer can do whatever they want with it. So if they misinterpret it, it's not the artist's responsibility. But that's why Jean-Luc Godard went to Michael Moore at Cannes Film Festival and said, at 9/11, he says, your film's going to help Bush get elected. Now, it didn't help Bush get elected per se, but it galvanized pro-Bushers. So it worked the opposite of what Michael wanted to do. So you don't have, the artist doesn't have a responsibility, but, hey, who knows? It's a hard thing to calculate. You can only observe this these outcomes of what happens after the art, I mean,
Right.
you've brought up capitalism and profitability, and like, I don't know, have you ever seen any of the Yes Men films?
Yes, men? No, I don't think so.
Anyways, yeah, or any culture jammers. They use a billboard and they change the billboard to say, don't smoke cigarettes to don't smoke cigarettes or something. So they use the medium of, I mean, I think you do that a little in your art. You use the medium of the culture around you. And sometimes people can't even see that that's what they're doing. So, that's an interesting thing about artist and moral obligation. Um, are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I'm afraid of ideas.
Yeah,
I guess I'm kind of delusionally optimistic about all ideas because I think even the most uh you know ideas that are ostensibly evil are
yeah,
trying to solve kind of very human
yeah,
questions about reality and what we should do and how we should live and what our goals should be
yeah,
for human beings.
yep.
So I don't know. I don't think I'm afraid of a lot of ideas. I think they're just kind of different ways people are addressing that question.
Yeah, it's how you process it. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
My earliest memory is of a dream I had where a broom and a mop were chasing me.
Wow. Sounds like Fantasia. Do you think memory is more a curse or more a blessing?
um, a blessing, I
Yeah,
think, because as much as I am haunted by the either traumatic or cringeworthy memories of my life, I have the tendency to romanticize my life in memories more so than I do in the present, and in that particular vantage point, my life seems not that
there you go. That's a subgenius. Pull the wool over your own eyes.
bad.
So, tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, certainly my mother was always uh, asking me what I thought about things and not pretending to be an expert about anything since I was a small child. Um, she talked to me like I was an adult, which was also, had its drawbacks as a parent, but I think that helped me develop a certain confidence in thinking for myself at a young age that I think has been valuable.
Beautiful. Same question outside your immediate family. Someone who had an impact, and what was the impact?
I had a creative writing teacher, my first year of college before I went to university, a community college back in my hometown of Tucson, Arizona, who, first day of class intentionally showed up late, burst in the door, jumped on the table. It was very not Goodwill Hunting, the other one, Good Dead Poet Society.
Yeah,
Inspirational to being a teacher and being an adult, I guess, and kind of like establishing credibility and confidence and in being your authentic self and being unusual and encouraging other people to you know be strange, I guess.
how cool. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yes, very. fundamentalist evangelical Christian. I was raised in that environment. I was homeschooled up until high school. Um, my mom was very skeptical of all of it, but she was very sheltered, and yeah, and my dad still is there. My mom kind of thought her way out of it a little bit, but yeah, I was raised that way.
Do you pray?
I don't know if you would call it I don't know if you'd call it that in any kind of organized religion sense, but I think there is some kind of communication that I attempt at whatever consciousness is listening.
Yeah. If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
I think I would need a lot of time to think about this question.
No problem. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I don't think evil people exist. I think people get just so deluded by their own pursuit of truth and meaning that they can work themselves into just absurd, um, destructive, violent, hateful ideologies.
Yeah. Well put. The real question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I guess I can understand. Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what he means by acknowledge, but it makes me think of um, I guess free speech and
Yeah.
the that what is the saying, light is the best sanitizing force. I don't know, but something like that. But letting people think or say what they want, and not trying to suppress it or make a big deal out of it, um is probably a better approach than sensationalizing it. or you
It's
know
yeah, but say your kid comes home from school in a couple years and says, I'm being bullied. What advice would you give them?
I'm trying to figure that out right now. um so when I was homeschooled, I had a bully, and it was also my best friend. um I had a lot of empathy for her and her home life. Um, and so while it was hard to deal with that as a child, I now feel stronger as a person. Whereas I could have treated her differently in ways that I think I would maybe regret now.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I'm getting off topic though.
No, it's not. I'm for tangents in anecdotes and stories. So that was good because it follows up with Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Gregory Bateson says if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? Basic question is, does punishment work?
I don't think so. Because I don't think so. From
Yeah,
Again, from a mom perspective.
yeah,
um uh Punishing someone for what they don't understand doesn't help them understand it.
Yeah, it's good. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. Volta Cinema. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
Um, I, I, I don't know. I tend to be painfully literal, so I think, um, I'm not sure I always understand the morals that are supposedly happening in works of fiction or,
Yeah,
what have you. Um, Maybe a bit more now and when I have time to think about them, but it's not the first thing that stands out to me when I consume those things. So, but I think, there's any number of vantage points to a story, and it can be helpful to see things from someone else's perspective.
yeah.
Um, Even if it's, not the same, you're only looking from your eyes.
Yeah, to see
Um,
something new with new eyes. That's exactly why I do these interviews, is just so I can learn something. And you're teaching me a lot because it actually evoked T.S. Eliot saying poetry can communicate before it's understood. And so, tell us, just briefly walk us through your tipping points. I mean, mainly you're a painter, filmmaker, educator. Where's your tipping points to go, oh, I want to pursue film as my calling. I want to pursue painting as a calling. I want to pursue educating as a calling. Where's those tipping points?
um, so I always was drawing and do you mean like like chronologically or
Yeah, yeah,
in
no,
general?
in any order you want. I mean, yeah, chronologically works good. Yeah, I mean, are you studying writing, and then you find painting, or then where did you find
I
painting?
started as a painter, or I started,
Yeah,
yeah, I was a, an artist. I always thought of myself as an artist since I was a small kid.
but
Um,
are your parents taking you to art museums or showing
no,
you art books?
no, no.
Where did you see art and go, "Oh, that's what I wanna do"? I mean, art classes in grade school or
Well, again, I was homeschooled, so no. And when I went to high school, we had one class called art. And that was just like very much a survey of vague
Yeah,
whatever. No, I have an early memory of seeing, I remember my mom telling me, "Oh, these kids won an art contest." And I remember seeing these other children's drawings who were probably a bit older than me. And I remember the moment I realized that people had bodies because I was looking at another little kid's drawing and they actually drew a body. And when, this was during my, I think they're called head footers, is when there's at first kids draw heads with legs coming out of them and they don't, it's like a normal developmental thing where you don't realize people have like a torso yet. And I remember the moment when so I guess in that moment, art is what made me realize that people had bodies, not just looking at my parents and myself, but seeing in the art was what made me realize it. And I'm not sure why that is, but I think it's just like I had, I don't know, a proclivity for communicating that way or understanding the world that way,
yeah.
I guess. But no, I undergrad concentrated in painting, and then in grad school, I I guess wanted more from painting, and I felt like the world was moving too fast to kind of have time for looking at paintings, and so I wanted to kind of keep up with that pace in some way, and so video art and kind of performing um, gave me that opportunity, and so I returned to painting, and I do that again, but for a long time I just did the video art, um, and then teaching. if I'm being honest, wasn't necessarily a passion I had. It was more like, well, this is what I can do with my master's degree. But
Yeah.
and make some money a little. But I have learned a lot from teaching, and I do enjoy it as well. But I kind of had to force myself to do that a bit more. It wasn't like a natural longing I had.
Yeah. What's the video art or film that you saw because you are in the genre of experimental film? Was there a teacher in college that showed you a particular piece of video art rather than Hollywood movies or regular TV?
Um, I was
Any
looking
any
at,
artist, yeah, any film artist or film title in particular that
yeah, it actually wasn't necessarily well, she makes films, but it was actually some the film stills from Cindy Sherman that
oh, I see.
I quite liked and
Yeah,
felt drawn to, the like kind of bizarre characters and costumes and makeup that she would do.
yeah.
Um, and then a video artist named Ryan Trecarton.
Oh, yeah.
I was really into. I really liked the humor. Um,
Very good. So you're seeing those in college or you're going to art galleries and seeing them? Or
I
art
saw I was first
museums?
introduced to them in grad school. I in undergrad, I didn't know anything about anything for a very
Yeah.
long time.
In grad school in grad school, your teachers turned you on to Ryan and Cindy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't even know if it was teachers, but in some cases teachers, some cases other students. But yeah,
other students, yeah. The screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. When you're making a film, not a commission, you're just making one of your Joanie films. What role does intention play in the creative process?
well, I think I've always wanted to be maybe. Well, I guess I would. Um, I'm trying to communicate. I want people to kind of
Yeah,
understand what I'm getting at, or I'm reaching out to people who do.
yeah.
Um, because it is definitely the intent is communication, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm capable of being kind of like aloof or like hiding. I don't know. I I think I tend to be just desperately trying to make a connection and not
Right. You mean you're not aloof, you mean you don't want to be ambiguous. Is that what you're saying?
I guess so. Yeah, I want people see my work and identify or empathize or commiserate, I guess.
Yeah. But that's Duchamp saying there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential viewer when you're making your film?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I am assuming that, or I guess that's why I'm making it. I'm asking, is this just me?
That's a good. You're asking the question, is this just me?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Very good. So we're going to get into that deeper, but McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. We talked about that a little. It's an extension, like knife and fork extends our teeth. Shutter in a camera extends our eyelid, and maybe even consciousness, untangible, could extend religion or philosophy. What does the two main tools that you've emphasized? You're painting with a brush. What does the paintbrush extend? What humanness? And then let's say in your filmmaking, what is the editing software? What do you use? Final Cut Pro or Premiere?
I use Final Cut Pro. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
What does Final Cut Pro extend? What humanness? And what does the paintbrush extend? What humanness?
Okay, well, I guess so. The reason I went back to painting is because of its physicality, and I actually a lot of my paintings are on wood panels and have like physical protrusions and sculptural things attached to them. I
Yeah.
like that three-dimensional. I like texture. I think that's why I've gone back to painting because the screen doesn't allow for that. Um, uh, there's just though with digital, video editing, you can really you can do anything, and you're not limited at all by um you can I appreciate the juxtapositions that you can achieve that way. So I can
Yeah.
take a character and put them in any environment and put anything with it and make it move in any way I want. And then yeah, uh I think there's an element of humor in both my paintings and videos, but it's a lot easier to understand humor as a time-based thing, I think. Or
Yes.
humor that doesn't involve just like there's more you can do with humor in time-based
Yeah.
media.
It's really good. Now, we're going to get in film more now, but I just want to ask you the roots of your humor, because I think your website's really clear and well constructed, and I realized how important humor in comedy is in your art. Who were your comedy heroes growing up? Did you watch TV? Rock music? What kind of sensibility, your humor, your comedy sensibility came from? Your peers, your parents, or people you're watching on TV or movies? Any stand out like that's kind of the humor that spawned my sensibility?
Um, so I throughout my childhood, the friends I was closest with, I had nothing in common with them except our sense of humor. And sometimes in some cases they were um people that maybe I shouldn't have been friends with, but humor was so important to me, I think, that um it's like being with someone where the two of you can just make each other laugh is just like bliss. It's just amazing. And
Yeah.
that uh it just made me happy.
It's mainly just the humor you create with your friends rather than Beavis and Butthead or whatever kind.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, watching cartoons. I remember kind of doing things that Jim Carrey did in The Mask,
I
and
see.
like
Yeah.
certain performance things, facial expressions and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, I remember my mom really liking Robin Williams and
Yeah.
seeing um, you know, the value of using humor to talk about things that are actually really horrific.
Yeah.
But
No, that gives me a good sense there. I was just curious. Peter Greenaway says that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. Are experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way or doing something completely different?
I think sometimes they're telling stories a different way, but if you think of a story as, I mean, yeah, we think of like narrative as in some ways chronological, or some ways, like relating, making sense in a certain way. I mean, yeah, the experimental stuff is doing something different, I think. Or it's I don't know, it's story is just the word, but I think they're telling story, or I think it's the juxtapositions that you can have that don't have to exist in like a narrative that is, chronological, that I think that you can see a lot more that way, or you can do a lot more with that.
You nailed it, because I always followed up with Andrew Noren said, yeah, if you put one frame next to another, that is narrative, that is storytelling. Whether the frames are abstract or people's faces telling a story, it doesn't matter. But Hollis Frampton said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. My question is, can you forget to die?
Uh, you mean forget about death?
Yeah,
Or
that's, talk about metaphor and literal. That's, people don't know if I'm meaning literally or metaphorically. You can put it in either context.
yeah, I mean, I mean, I would love to think about, or I maybe would love to think about death in that context of like is something that you choose to do finally, whether your body exists or not. And that you could forget to do. I probably would forget to do it. Um, I think that people live their lives um in a way that is very much forgetting that. um but I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's all right. Now, what are the services and disservices of marginalizing or ghettoizing experimental film? Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in 1949, and normal people couldn't start forming an aesthetic on experimental painting. Bruce Conner and Maya Deren weren't on the cover of Life magazine. So it's generally what I call rich art kids or privileged who develop an avant-garde aesthetic and dominate experimental film. I mean, this. You go to Ann Arbor, who's getting hoiked up? I've lectured at your college too. It's a bunch of rich kids. Not to, over generalize with cheesy terms, but any thoughts on that? That experimental film is sort of marginalized.
uh well, I'm sorry. So like you're saying that experimental film is marginalized, but also people who are marginalized are not making experimental film so much because it's mostly these kind of like rich kids who are making
Well, it doesn't matter what I'm trying to ask. You just get the sense of it. It's actually the whole art market. I mean, the whole art market. I mean, you're in both markets. You're in experimental film. You're in the art market. And I'm not trying to make a value judgment on you. I'm just saying, do you observe that at all? I mean, uh, all the power to the kids who can get out of the ghetto and go to, CCS and take art classes and make a living doing that. But,
Mhm.
you know, I'll tell you the funniest thing. I was speaking at the Flint Institute of Arts to a bunch of, art kids. And I said to this woman, well, what do you aspire to do or be? And she goes, I want to end up in New York starving in a loft. And it was sort of, she wants to be a struggling artist, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to create art. But she's already, sort of admitting to me, but I'm already privileged. So,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to demonize them. Because you just look at the 60 years of Ann Arbor. It's like who goes there, and it's a great community. It's a real family and a community, but you know it does have some marginalization that you wonder about. It could be in literature, it could be in art, it could be everything. It could be the bigger picture. Is capitalism you know the bottom line thing going on here, or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just curious if you had any observations, because you might go, no, I have a bunch of kids who aren't privileged in my class. So, you know,
I think that I think that it's dominated by kids who are definitely privileged and or there's um a rich kids wanting to kind of cosplay as poor people is also a thing for that woman to say that. I've dated people like that. But but I
that was
don't.
the best shot of the whole podcast when you go, I've dated people like that, and your eyes bulge out.
Yeah. But but I that is the unfortunate. Well, what I was going to say is there are kids who, in my generation and younger who think we're told just go to college and whatever you major in, you're going what as long as you have a college degree, you're going to have a job. And there's kids who are just in copious amounts of debt,
Yeah.
for humanities degrees that have no job prospects that they really thought did, or they feel foolish now
Yeah.
realizing that they didn't. So I not all of them are, I would say, you know n- you don't have to be a rich kid to not really understand what it's like to be poor, or realize
Yeah.
what it's like to try to support yourself. But yeah, there is some, it is definitely dominated, I think, by kids who
Yeah.
have with some measure of privilege. And yeah.
And it's changed immensely because when I went to Ann Arbor, there wasn't even the film department. I took film classes through the English department and there was no debt. Nobody got out of college and had debt.
Yeah.
That was like unheard of. So it's really changed a lot. So Michael Apted, the great filmmaker, I asked him 40 years ago, I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know that Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Well, Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster? Or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
um I lean towards the idea that we're brainwashed on some level. I mean, I think, it's like people thinking that they can multitask well, and just the research shows that that's just not it's not the case. Um so it is unfortunate because it's not just that, it's not just like MTV. Life moves so fast that like people don't have a lot of free time. That's why a lot
Yeah,
of people just eat fast food. Like you just like you
totally. Yeah.
literally don't have time.
And then
Less
we
and
have
less
that reaction.
consumption.
Yeah, then we have that reaction. They have now their slow cinema. Well, I didn't even know there was fast cinema, But I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but yeah, exactly. You have ESP because that is exactly the question I follow up this one with. Can humans literally multitask?
I don't think they can well. I don't think evolution happens that fast.
Yeah,
Maybe we're going in that direction, but it's like the technology thing, like having an answer doesn't is not the same as learning.
yeah,
So reaching an answer, finding an answer is what learning is, not just getting an answer. So like I've become dependent on GPS because I was
yeah,
already bad with directions, but now I'm even worse because I just rely on it so much.
yeah,
So, it's great and it makes things happen
yeah.
faster, but it doesn't make me perform faster or function
But
faster.
yeah, this is called what McLuhan is. Every invention has services and disservices. So the services is you're getting to your place that you can inventory the disservices, but it's not that you have to. He said understanding is not having a point of view in the big picture. You're going to still use GPS because it services you well. You can articulate to me words out of your mouth why you don't think that's good, but you're going to still use it. That's okay. You're understanding the big picture. It's called comprehensive awareness of how GPS has shaped human behavior. That's
Mhm.
what's important, I think. In you know, I think you're aware of this stuff. That's what I like. So what do you think the motive of the cave artist was?
Other cave people. um,
You mean the other people was what was important more than the art?
I think so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Well, if everyone compromise, I mean, someone's got to have conviction, but compromise, I guess, in that sense, is more important because if everyone has conviction and no one has compromise, you're at a deadlock. If no one has conviction and everyone has compromise, you're,
Yeah.
you're a mess. Uh, so, but I think I guess the vast well, I don't know where I'm going with this. Um,
No, hey, you said it well, Joni. This is I bet that's my oldest question for 40 years. I got it from Christine McKenna. And my favorite answer ever was a guy who comes to Ann Arbor every year and complains about all the films. He's a great fan of experimental film. Says, what's more important, conviction or compromise? He goes, depends on what you mean by important. So he shifted the emphasis away because 90% of people say conviction. I want people to say compromise, but I'm not. I do these so I can hear other points of view, and of course it's both. But you sussed it out well because it is funny. It is a funny question. It's like this one. How do you rate these three elements in your accomplishments? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role? Second and third.
well, I guess I don't think I'm that accomplished, so I can't say.
Yeah, but
I
I mean,
think,
come on. You win a
yeah,
you had a film win in Ann
yeah,
Arbor. You're teaching at CCS. You got a kid. That's three good accomplishments.
yeah. I guess I would love to say that it's skill, but I think in this world it's ambition probably more so. That I think there's a lot of skill that just doesn't go anywhere, and there's a lot of ambition that goes places that shouldn't. But I think that what I don't like the um I have to really force myself to do the ambitious part, and my impulse is to not be ambitious. So
Yeah.
I think that initially when I was young, I was really hoping for a lot of luck, and I've had to learn the hard way that I have to put forth more ambition to accomplish anything.
That is so funny because first of all, Gary Player, the golfer, says the more you practice, the luckier you get. And that's really because the way I put them in order, some people go, oh, well, just that order: luck, skill, and ambition. They don't want to say skill first because it sounds like you're being braggadatory. It's like, no, it's not. If you put skill first, that's fine. Because other people go, the three options you gave me aren't good. I would say purpose, destiny, persistence. But the way I used to ask the question was, is ambition based more on fear or joy? 80% of people would go fear. So then I switched it because William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, he said, in Hollywood, luck and skill have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. Which is funny because again, people like, where does this thing called ambition? It's like almost like work ethic. That's the really hard one I have to avoid talking to people about, because if I say, where'd you get your work ethic? Most people go, my parents. In about the third paragraph down on Wikipedia for work ethic, it says, this could be a scam from consumer capitalism.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We know that there is that. Yeah.
So, two of my film heroes, George Manupelli, who started the festival years ago, his mantra was ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Um, I mean, I would definitely say that it feels more like I'm trying to process things that are I mean, of course, I'm thinking about them, but they're the ideas that are or the intent that's put into my videos are definitely something I've picked up or I've sensed from culture or from what I'm observing, or I'm trying to kind of make sense of what I'm observing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can art making be egoless?
Uh, I don't know. I think that, there's like I haven't done a lot of collaboration, and I think that there's definitely it seems like there could be something that's more invested in the more collective, the less ego involved. But it's also makes you vulnerable, so there's definitely ego attached to that.
Yeah, it's funny because everybody's or not 90% say no, I can't. It's not egoless. And then one woman said about a year ago, she goes, "Great art is egoless." And it was interesting to hear that because it's like, how do these artists who reach a lot of people, they touch some universality or something like you're like, do you like you said earlier, do you guys see what I'm seeing? Is you're sort of looking for that. But I do all my art as collaborative, and I in recent films I make, they send me the first cut, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted. And then I eventually show it to a couple people, and they go, that's great. And I was like, okay. And I feel like I'm stepping down, and I don't reach out, and like my feature, the guy says, how is that? And I goes, I'd never put that in, but keep it in. So I had to step out to say, for the sake of the piece, just leave it. So I understand that. See, that's the phenomenon with experimental film. It's usually a one person project, you know. I
Hmm.
mean, that's sort of, I mean, there's a million variations on that. So T.S. Eliot, the poet, said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
One-liners.
I'll give me a high five for that because I was dying to one-liners. That is brilliant. Everybody goes English. I goes, come on, it's more what form is your inner consciousness in? But Abigail Child, that filmmaker from New York. She's entered Ann Arbor several times. She's really good. When I asked her that, she goes, "What language is your inner dialogue?" And she goes, I wish I knew. No, one-liners. I love that. Okay, is perception reality?
I mean, maybe it's like maybe it's like a simulacrum.
Oh yeah,
Maybe it's like our perceptions, mask that there is no reality,
yeah,
or replace whatever reality there was.
yeah. I gotta tell you, yeah. You ever see the film Uso Justo? Usto Justo. Anyways, you've
Mhm.
got to look it up. You got to look it up and find it. Coleman Miller. It's a fake experimental film, and it got rejected in Ann Arbor, and they called him up and says, we made this film for you, and then it won a prize. So they pulled it out of the reject pile, which they don't do anymore,
Hmm.
which is horrible. And it is so funny because when I says his perception reality, he goes, that's all you got.
Yeah.
Okay. um tell me one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been being creative? Painting, filmmaking.
Um, well, I guess portraiture, was something I always since I was my early, you know, um, creations as an artist were always portraits. As a painter, I did a lot of portraits, and then um, when I did video stuff, because it's such a solitary thing, partially because I was so maybe insecure about not knowing what I was doing, that I was afraid to um, film other people. So that has remained mostly like a self-portrait thing, or like I end up being all of the characters.
Yeah.
um
What's
that
something that's changed?
um well, I guess that's also what changed, because I used to do portraits of other people um
Oh,
all the
and now
time.
you do them of yourself.
Now, well, in the videos, and it's always me being the character. So
I
I have
see.
yet to cast other people as the characters I come up
Yeah,
with. I think I might in the future, but
yeah,
I've always been not really sure, because I don't really have a script for myself when I start. I'm not really sure how to direct them,
yeah,
and I tend to be, I think, maybe compromising, and that's why I do compromising over convicted. So I think that's why I've leaned to experimental filmmaking, that's my experimental filmmaking being solitary, because I'm afraid that I want to like just will compromise completely and not have any kind of voice in it. But I think I might branch out and do more collaborative stuff in the future, as I give as more of a sense that, oh, I know what I'm doing on some level.
yeah. Very good. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
My just everything I think that has been successful in my videos has actually been a mistake that I tried to resolve in a lazy way, or in a way that I didn't have to actually resolve, work out how to do it the correct way. There was always some sound issue. There was always some, the video quality, the lighting. There's so many things that, you know, I could have been more professional about, and I wasn't, and then I tried to kind of resolve them or make them, things didn't end up looking the way I wanted them to, but I didn't really know how to achieve that, so I found some kind of workaround, and that's always what tends to be the most, I guess, compelling,
That's
as
that's
people say.
that is brilliant. That's what McLuhan learned from James Joyce Finnegan's Wake. How do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How do you turn a rejection into a redirection? Iggy Pop did it great. He said, my band was so bad imitating the Rolling Stones, we invented punk rock. But the other thing you said was, Jean Cocteau said it years ago. He says, when you make your first piece of art and your family and your friends and your teachers come up and give you feedback and they go, oh, that was really good, but you got to color inside the lines, or they give you some criticism. Cocteau said, take that criticism and exploit it for the rest of your career, which is sort of what you're saying. You go, I couldn't figure this out. So then I tried and covered it up, and then it made, then I won a prize. So fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when.
uh When you use it to journal rather than to do the dishes.
Journal, then do the dish. That is so good. My aunt do dishes. I got to write that down because my aunt, I had this survey and it goes, I'd rather blank than blank. And she wrote in, I'd rather walk than do the dishes. Okay, my friend wrote comedy with Robin Williams, and I said, can satire be destructive? He said, that's the job of satire. And me or you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, that some people think death is destructive. But Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
Uh, well, I think to, to exaggerate certain things and so that you can kind of laugh about them, but um and learn, uh maybe to take certain things less seriously and other things more seriously.
Yeah, shift your priorities. But what's the function of laughter?
Um well, I think people learn more in laughing about things than they do in most other ways of addressing them. Um,
Freaky, because my friend taught me when you're laughing, you're learning. It's a
yeah.
great line. It's amazing. But Gurdjieff said laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. That's sort of back to that false binaries. Steve Allen would say, behind every joke, there's a grievance. He just dropped the word every. Behind jokes, there's a grievance. What's your take on that?
I would agree with that. I mean, I think, you don't make jokes about everything being great. Like, jokes are always trying to kind of cope with or understand or at least laugh at grievances or pain or whatever.
Yeah, Mike Kelly said, making art is making your problems other people's problems.
Yeah.
You would agree with that?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, uh, like, it is like commiserating, like desiring misery desires I don't know. It, yeah, I don't know how, I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait morphed it into the line, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing or your mind is super saturated in the religion in which you say you disbelieve. Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Joanie, I'm saying one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it unfortunately feels true as a parent. Like, one of the things I try to impress upon my kid are the opposite of what comes, what he learns from it. He can push it, and I don't, and that's like back to the nature nurture thing. But I think, my pushing my kid to be independent has made him obsess over me doing everything for him. I think also, like, the protest in recent time has for some reason resulted in more oppressive regimes.
Yes.
Had the opposite effect. I I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems to be unfortunately true. Maybe we should just do the opposite. Lean into every, like, a reverse psychology will bring about the
I,
world
lo-
we want.
I like that. We got to try something. I've got an essay I just wrote called Can Art Stop War? I'd love to send it to you because it's basically on the premise that we're more hardwired for cooperation than we are for violence. And people like, it's natural to fight. It's like, no, it's natural to be cooperative. you know. So here's 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. 1, who started it all?
Well, if you're talking about, if it is this like and big web of language that has made everything confusing and told people that they should be a certain way, then maybe the church.
Okay, I never get that. Who started all the church? 2, are we going to make it?
I think so, but again, I am delusionally hopeful.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. 3, where do we put it?
That maybe the places that are most banal.
Yeah. 4, who's cleaning it up?
Our children.
Wow. 5, is it serious?
Yes. Maybe not.
There you go. We got about 10 more minutes. I really appreciate your time and energy here. It's really been fun. How do you find peace of mind?
I don't.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Trust your gut instincts.
Yeah. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Under. I recently changed my opinion on that, so yeah.
What changed it?
Uh, it just makes more sense. Also, I saw a picture of a spider on the other side of the paper on the internet.
Utah Phillips says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Who's entitled to make the rules for other people?
Well, just in general, who's entitled to make laws, entitled to make the rules. The word entitled is a little hard there. It's like who should, no, who's entitled. I settled on the word entitled, but it's just like, if I say who makes the rules, then it's like, well, the rich people make the rules, But I mean, who's entitled kind of is like it's more like who should or who's entitled to make the rules in general.
I tend to think, the people who are, depending on what the rules are, the people who are there doing those things and living those realities.
Yeah, because the word freedom etymologically breaks down to exactly what Utah Phillips said, giving oneself one's own laws. What does freedom mean to you now?
I'm not sure I'm not sure we have freedom. I'm not sure I've felt free. Sometimes I guess, like I feel like an NPC. Have you heard a non-playable character in a video game? Sometimes I think that, I don't have agency. Just
Yeah.
like but there are times that I thought things would get me free, and the things that I wanted to get me free were actually ways I lost freedom. So, and I see that a lot, especially when you think of like financial security becoming a freedom, ends up being the opposite.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Um, I think and I don't know if it's a cultural shift. Well, okay, one cultural shift that I see that is inspiring me is um the fact that things change, the fact that people get bored of things and sick of things is really good, because it means that the people who kind of try to control society are always have to stay on their toes, because no method is going to work forever.
Yeah,
So, as you know, it's kind of a race. But people start to recognize propaganda, or start to
yeah,
get sick of social media, or get sick of AI slop, or get sick of whatever. So, the fact that people get bored of things and sick of things and move on and change and want something new, and I think that's a very good thing.
it's good. I agree. If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Um, I'm trying. I just keep
Flying's a good
trying.
title. They want to scent the glue in the binding of your book. What smell?
Crab Rangoon.
What is that?
Like a Chinese takeout, there's little fried wontons that are stuffed with cream cheese and like artificial
Mm,
crab meat.
dude, you're making me hungry.
They're
Okay.
delicious.
Yeah, I want one. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Um, it would be on the beach, and it would be made of tuna, canned tuna,
That is
and
a
then
great.
yeah,
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
something good I never had and I never want. Rich parents.
Good, never had it, never want it. Very good. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
uh, I'd climb out. I don't
couple couple more and we're out of here. Thanks for your time. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
know. How to teach my kid how to be happy.
Oh, that's great. Um, how has making art shaped your behavior?
mm, I think making art is what gives me hope about the future. I don't think I would be around. I don't think I would stick around if I didn't have it.
Good. Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to hide it and tell it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
I guess um, wanting to both know and not know myself. I guess playing hide and seek with myself. You talked about Alan Watts. I think there's something to that. Playing hide and seek, and the joy of kind of getting to know and not knowing.
Yeah. It's a great revelation because that's Alan Watts always says, everybody's trying to figure out who they are. If you figure out who you are, you're fucked. But you still want to seek it, and you got to be able to. I mean, Thornton Wilder nails it. Art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. That almost sounds like sneaky, but you can't. You've got to realize it's forever changing, and you're never going to know. That's like Fireside Theater said, everything you know is wrong. But no, that statement is right. So it contradicts itself right there.
I
Okay.
think that, that was with your earlier question about what gives me most hope about like how thought is shifting. That's another thing that I think about is there was a time when people were like, uh, nothing matters. And I think there are some younger generations that are like, nothing matters. That's such a
Yeah.
positive thing. So
Yeah. You've got to realize both. If your mantra is just nothing matters, no, that statement matters and nothing matters. If you can embrace contradiction, I think that's the big thing. And I really think you said hide and seek is a great way to process that Wilder quote. I thought it was great. What gives you the most optimism?
um if I thinking that people are ultimately trying and people are
Yeah.
ultimately good and that they're trying to make sense of things and make things better. Although it doesn't always seem that way. I think that people are very misled or misguided, but I think everyone is trying to kind of do what they think is right in a way, or what they're I think that yeah, I could be wrong, but I think that people are ultimately trying to do what is best,
I agree.
even if they're misguided.
It's really good. It's what I believe too, and I appreciate your time here. The first question I ask is, "What's the best thing for a human being?" And Wilhelm Reich said, "The best thing for a human being is another human being." The last question I ask is, "What gives you the most optimism?" Is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life, and he says, "Other people." Sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because of you, Joanie. Thank you so much for your time and energy. Really fun.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye. Yep.